Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics Duo here. Today we have a 2007 Dodge Sprinter with a 3.0 liter. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on while the engine is running. The customer also stated that the vehicle is losing power tremendously. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to confirm the customer's complaint. We're going to go inside the vehicle and start the engine to see if the check engine light will remain on while the engine is running. After that, we're going to connect a scan tool to the vehicle to scan the engine computer to see what kind of trouble codes we have in memory that are causing the check engine light to remain on. I need to point out that this vehicle is one of my subscribers' vehicle. The owner of this vehicle saw one of my videos on YouTube. He reached out to me, we exchanged via emails. So he decided to bring his vehicle to me so I can look at it. So he brought his vehicle here, so now here we are. I would like to give a shout out to Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman from Bolivia, thank you for bringing your vehicle to us. Thank you for bringing business to us. Actually, Mr. Herman drove all the way from Arlington, Virginia. So he drove about an hour and 10 minutes to come to our shop. So we appreciate your business, Mr. Herman. So now let's go inside the vehicle and confirm the customer's complaint. So now I'm gonna start the engine so we can confirm the customer's complaint. So let's start the engine. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and we have a couple lights that are on the dash. Okay, so we have the check engine light that's on. Let me zoom you guys into the dash a little bit. So we have the check engine light that's on. We have the ABS light on. The traction control light is on. The ESP light is on. And the brake light is also on. And the tire pressure monitor light is flashing. Okay, and this light over here is on when one of the exterior lights is out. Either one of the headlights or one of the tail lights. Okay. So customer's complaint confirmed. Now I want to point out that the brake light is on, but the usually when you have the brake light on like this, it's usually caused by the park brake being engaged. But the parking brakes are not engaged right now, so the parking brakes are completely released. The brakes are completely released. I mean, I'm actually pushing the park brake lever down right now. I hope you can hear that. But the brake light is on the dash. Now, from experience, usually when I see the brake light illuminate and the ABS light illuminate at the same time, the problem ends up being a defective ABS module. Okay, if the module is not talking, the ABS light will come on and the brake light will come on also. Okay. Now, this can be caused by a defective module or a module that's not being powered. If the ABS control unit is not getting power, the ABS symbol on the dash will be on, and so will the brake light. Okay, so this is something, just a side note. Okay, now what we need to do is I am going to turn off the engine. We're gonna focus on the check engine light first, and then we will focus on these other lights afterwards. Okay, so let's connect the scan tool to the vehicle and scan these modules to see what we're gonna find. So I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. I will get the scan tool connected and then I'll bring you guys back up. So I got the scan tool connected to the vehicle. So now let's scan it for some trouble codes. So I'm just gonna go to the generic side, display trouble codes. Let's see what kind of trouble codes we have here. Wow, we have a couple trouble codes. The first trouble code is P0110, intake air temperature sensor 1, circuit bank 1. Okay, and then the other one is P0100, mass or volume air flow sensor A circuit. Then third one is P0107, manifold absolute pressure / barometric pressure sensor circuit low. And then the other one is P0676, cylinder 6 glow plug circuit /open P0675 glow plug 5, cylinder 5, glow plug circuit open. So we have a couple glow plug codes over here, and it looks like we have codes for all 6 glow plugs. And usually when I see codes for all 6 glow plugs like this, the problem end up being the glow plug module. If you have a defective glow plug module that's not sending power to all the glow plugs, it's gonna set the code for all 6 glow plugs. It's either the module, or maybe we could just have defective glow plugs. Maybe all 6 of them are bad. Okay, and then we have another one down here. So P2036 exhaust gas temperature sensor, circuit high bank 1 sensor 2. So it looks like one of these exhaust temperature sensors, so the circuit is staying high on this sensor. And the last one is P242F particulate filter restriction hash accumulation bank 1. So this over here, I see a lot of this here in the shop, this specific code. This is caused by the DPF being either fully clogged or partially clogged. Because if you have a lot of soot accumulated inside the DPF, that will cause a restriction in the exhaust stream. So it's gonna prevent the exhaust gases to get back to the tailpipe so they can go out. Okay, so basically all the exhaust gases coming out of the cylinders will get trapped in the DPF because the DPF is restricted or partially restricted. Okay, and if the exhaust gases are not going out freely, it's going to cause the vehicle to lose power because the engine will feel choked. It's like choking up the engine. If the engine is choked, it's not gonna suck air properly. If it doesn't suck the right amount of air in the cylinders, well, it's gonna start losing power. So this trouble code over here is what's causing the vehicle to lose power. Okay, so this vehicle is gonna need a regeneration. We're gonna have to regenerate this DPF and see how it runs after that. We're gonna have to use the liquid moly diesel particulate filter cleaner to clean the DPF. Okay, so this is what's causing the power loss. Usually when I see this trouble code set, it also causes mass airflow sensor trouble codes to be set. As you can see right here, we have this mass airflow sensor trouble code because when the DPF is clogged, the engine is choked, so the engine is not gonna be able to suck the correct amount of air. If the correct amount of air is not passing by the mass airflow sensor tip, the engine computer is gonna see a low signal pretty much all the time. And if it sees the low signal all the time or more than it's supposed to, it's gonna trigger this mass airflow sensor trouble code. Right now, we can actually, what we could do is we can go to the mass airflow sensor and check the wiring. We have to make sure that there is power, there's ground at the mass airflow sensor. We also have to make sure that the signal is getting out of the mass airflow sensor. But I don't think the mass airflow sensor has a problem. It's actually this trouble code over here, this DPF trouble code, that's causing the mass airflow sensor trouble code to be set. Okay, and this intake air temperature sensor trouble code, we can check this also. We can check the intake temperature sensor. But what I'm gonna do is, since we have a bunch of trouble codes, I'm gonna focus on this glow plug trouble codes and this DPF trouble code and the exhaust gas temperature sensor trouble code. Because if the sensor is actually showing a hot temperature, if it's sending a skewed signal to the computer, the computer can also go into a derate mode. It can actually reduce the engine power to prevent the DPF or the exhaust stream from catching on fire. Because if the exhaust temperature, one of the exhaust temperature sensor is sending the wrong signal to the engine computer, the engine computer will think like there's a problem in the exhaust system, or it might think that the exhaust system is too hot, So it might even reduce the amount of fuel that it's sending inside the cylinders, which can eventually cause a power loss concern. Okay, so this is something we can definitely keep an eye on also. So since we have a lot of trouble codes, the scan tool has already saved these trouble codes. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to erase all these trouble codes, and then I will scan it again to see what kind of trouble codes will come back first. The ones that will come back first will be the ones we're going to address. So now let's erase these trouble codes. So we're going to back out. So we're going to go to clear emissions related. This should be able to clear our trouble codes. Let's go to display trouble codes. Right there, no trouble codes. So let's back out. I'm gonna start the engine. So the engine is running. No check engine light. All right, so let me turn off this engine. Actually, let's see if we can look at some data. Let's go to display current data. I want to look at the data PID for the exhaust temperature sensor. Let me see if I can see it over here. On the generic side, I may not be able to see it. I'm probably gonna have to go to the OEM side to see the data PID for the exhaust temperature sensor. Okay, so let's turn off the engine. Let's back out. Let's see if there's any trouble code that came back. So no trouble codes already. So let's back out of here. Let's go to the generic side. Okay, let's go to the OE side. I'm sorry, I meant OE side, not generic. I used the generic side just because I haven't used the generic side in a long time, but the OE side sometimes is better. It just depends. Okay, I know there are certain things you can see easily or you can understand easily on the generic side in terms of like data PIDs and stuff like that. So it's good to have both. Okay, so let's go straight to the, I can either do a full system scan or we could just go to the engine computer. Okay, actually let's do a full system scan. Let's see what we got, because that way we can see what are the trouble codes we have in the other modules. We have 16 trouble codes in the engine computer, so this is the OE side. We got glow plug trouble codes, so we already saw those. We got the precat temp sensor, temperature sensor voltage too high. Okay, we got that. So diesel particulate filter, so this is caused because of the accumulation of soot in the DPF. We got some intake temperature sensor plausibility error. As you can see, we have more trouble codes on the OE side, so which is good. We got some communication errors here. Lost communication with cluster / cabin compartment node. Lost communication with electronic ignition switch, central gateway module. Okay, so we got a couple communication faults, and I want to show you this device, guys. So there's some type of security device over here, some type of aftermarket security device, and I asked the customer about this when he dropped off the vehicle. He told me if the vehicle doesn't start, just unplug this box and plug it back in. I mean, I don't like messing with this aftermarket stuff, but again, I'm pretty sure this is what's causing our communication trouble codes in the engine computer. So the customer wants us to fix the power loss concern, so that's what we're gonna fix. And I'm pretty sure what's causing the power loss concern is the soot accumulation in the DPF. So we're also gonna address these glow plug trouble codes. and also this precat temperature sensor trouble code. Okay, and we got some communication faults also in the transmission control unit. So the electronic gear selector has 3 trouble codes in it. Electronic stability program, it has 6 trouble codes in it. So this vehicle has a couple trouble codes here. Pretty much every module has a trouble code in it. Now, one thing I noticed is that out of all the list of all these modules, the ABS control module is not here. I don't know if you noticed. So the engine computer is right there. Then if we continue to scroll, the transmission control unit is right there. The electronic gear selector is right there. The electronic stability program is right there. So right there, airbag, and then instrument panel, steering column module, heating and air conditioning, tire pressure monitor. So these are different modules, and right there. So then this is the generic side. So the ABS control unit is not communicating. So I mean the scan tool is not communicating with the ABS control unit. Remember earlier I said that when you see the ABS light and the brake light on the dash, the problem could be a defective module or a module that's not communicating. I mean a module that's not powered. Okay, so now what I want to do next is, this is pretty straightforward and pretty self-explanatory. We're going to check these glow plugs. So this can be caused by a module or a defective glow plug. What we're going to do is we're going to go under the hood and disconnect one glow plug wire. We're going to use a test light to test the glow plug wire. I have a couple of videos on this channel that show how to test the glow plug system, so I can refer you to those videos. Now let's back out of here, and I want to look at some data. I want to look at the exhaust temperature data. Okay, so let's go to DPF. So remember, it was the precat exhaust temperature that was stuck high, and right here. So we just started the vehicle, okay, and the vehicle didn't run that much, but the precat temperature is 572. This is too much. Look at the post-cat. So post-cat temperature sensor is 73.7. Huge discrepancy. Okay, so this is a problem, huge problem. And with this temperature sensor having a huge discrepancy like this, I don't think the computer will even allow us to do a regeneration. So we're gonna have to fix this temperature, the precat temperature issue. We have to fix this. So these temperature sensors are thermistors, okay? So basically when you disconnect them, they should read a very cold temperature. And I'm pretty sure this is a defective sensor, so it's sending a skewed signal to the control unit. So we're gonna get to this sensor and unplug it. We're gonna unplug this sensor and see what the value will be here after we unplug it, okay? Because if you just compare this temperature with the other sensors over here, you will notice that this one, you see this one is showing 73, this one is showing 70, 73, but this one is showing 572 degrees, so that's too much. Now let me graph this. So now what I want to do is I want to go under the hood. Since this is the precat, so this is the exhaust temperature sensor before the catalytic converter, okay? So we are going to go there and disconnect it. After disconnecting it, we're gonna look at our value over here and see what happens. If after disconnecting it, if this value goes down, we will know that the sensor is sending a skewed signal to the engine computer, okay? So after that, the problem will just be replacing the sensor. So I'm pretty sure that's what it's gonna be. We're gonna replace this sensor. We're gonna check the glow plug system. If the glow plug wiring is good, we're gonna replace the glow plugs, and we're gonna use the DPF cleaner to clean the DPF, and then we're gonna test drive this vehicle to see how it runs after that. So now let's go under the hood and do that. So we are here under the hood. Now we're gonna test the pre-cat exhaust temperature sensor. So the pre-cat exhaust temperature sensor electrical connector is right here. And I also brought the scan tool here under the hood so we can watch the PID on the scan tool. As you can see, it's saying pre-cat temperature 572 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is really high. Now, for most thermistors, when you disconnect them, they read very cold temperatures. And then when you connect them back up, they start to read the normal temperature. I don't know if this one is opposite. I know these exhaust temperature sensors actually share a lot of temperature. They're probably not negative coefficient thermistors. They're probably different type of thermistors. But what I'm gonna do is, I guess I can look it up and read on service information and see how this specific sensor works, or we can just disconnect the electrical connector and see if this reading here is going to change. Okay, so this over here is our sensor's electrical connector. So I'm going to disconnect it. So I'm going to seat you guys over here. So with the sensor connected, we're reading 572 degrees on the scan tool. So I'm going to get this disconnected. So we got it disconnected. I'm just going to tuck the other half of the connector right there. So now let's look at the scan tool. So right there, with it disconnected, we are still reading 572 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, it could be the sensor is defective and open on the inside, and the voltage basically going to the sensor is not being dropped. And when the computer sees that high voltage, it defaults to this 572. Because if we were to go back to our trouble codes, I think it said something about high voltage. Voltage high. So basically, oops. So we're actually, the test we're doing right now is to verify this code. And code 3132, it says pre-cat temperature sensor voltage too high. Okay, so we have that 572 reading when the voltage is too high. Okay, so now what we're gonna do next is we're going to check the wiring. This wiring over here, okay, the wiring coming from the computer. We're gonna back probe this. We're gonna use our multimeter to see what voltage we have here. Now I'm gonna grab our multimeter to see what voltage we have. So we're gonna test the voltage with the sensor disconnected first, then we're gonna connect it to see if the voltage will drop. Because when we connect the sensor, if the sensor is good, the voltage that we have on the harness with the sensor unplugged should be different, okay? When we plug it, it should drop. If it doesn't drop, then that will tell me that the sensor is defective, okay? So now I'm gonna grab the multimeter so we can do that. So here's my multimeter. We're gonna put it on the voltage scale right there, okay? So I'm gonna sit my multimeter over here. So now I'm gonna back probe these two wires on this sensor wiring. All right, so we got both wires back probed, and right here, this is what we're reading on the multimeter. So we got 4.94 volts, okay? So almost 5 volts going to the pre-cat temperature sensor, okay? So I'm gonna put our multimeter right here so you can see it. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reconnect the exhaust temperature sensor, okay? Now, if the sensor is good, right now with the sensor unplugged, we are reading 4.94, okay? So right there, 4.94 with the sensor unplugged. Now, when I plug in the sensor, if the sensor is good, this voltage should go down. If the voltage doesn't go down, then the problem is a defective sensor, okay? The sensor is open internally. So I'm gonna leave this over here. I'm gonna connect the sensor right there. The sensor is connected. Now let's see what we got on the multimeter. As you can see, we still have the 4.94 volts, okay? So sensor is connected and we still have 4.94 volts, so almost 5 volts. So this tells me that the problem is the sensor. The sensor is defective. So basically, this voltage here, let me show you. This voltage, this 572 volts that we have here, so the computer basically shows this voltage when it sees a high, not the voltage, the temperature, okay? The computer shows this 572 degree Fahrenheit when it sees a high voltage in the circuit. So when the voltage stays high, it basically shows you a high temperature. This is different, so this is not a negative coefficient thermistor, okay? Because on the other thermistors, when there's an open, it shows a very cold temperature, but this one, it's showing a high temperature, okay? So that's why we have a, that's why we have a high voltage trouble code, because if we go back, if we go to codes, let me turn off this light. If we go to codes, over here, it says precut temperature sensor voltage high. So the voltage is stuck high because the sensor is open, okay? So the voltage the computer is sending to the sensor is not being dropped to ground, okay? So that's the problem. Now, to fix this, we're gonna have to get a new sensor so that this voltage can be dropped. Now, the other thing we could do is, since we're back probed over here at the sensor connector, we can go inside the vehicle and start the engine to see if when the sensor gets hot, if it's gonna get back to life, okay? So I'm gonna leave the multimeter up here. I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and start the engine. Let's start the engine and see if this reading over here on the multimeter is gonna change. So now let's do that. All right, guys, I started the engine. As you can hear, the engine is running. We're still connected at the exhaust temperature sensor electrical connector. So right here, with the engine running, we're still reading 4.94 volts, okay? So almost 5 volts. So our wiring is good. The problem is the sensor. So the sensor has to be replaced. After we replace the sensor, this should be good, because with the sensor connected, that voltage should drop to ground. Should drop to 2 volts or 1 volt. Not ground, but it should go low. So that voltage should go down. Okay. So I'm gonna turn off the engine. Now the next step is gonna be checking the glow plug circuit. So I'm gonna turn off the engine and then we will check the glow plug circuit. We're gonna do that by removing the air filter box and then removing the engine cover. After we remove the air filter box and the engine cover, we're gonna get access to the glow plug. I'm gonna connect a test light to ground, and then the other side of the test light is gonna go to the glow plug wire, and then we're gonna cycle the key. If the test light lights, that will tell me that the wiring is good. The problem is just the glow plug. I've done this, I think, twice or 3 times here on the channel. I have a couple videos that show how to test a glow plug circuit. So if you have questions about how to test it and how it works, I will refer you to those videos. Just go on my playlist. You will find glow plug videos or how to test a glow plug circuit on a Sprinter van. Okay, So if you have any questions or if you want to know how a glow plug circuit works, I would refer you to one of my videos on my playlist about glow plug system. So now I am going to remove the air filter box so we can get to the glow plug wire. Now, I am not going to test the mass airflow sensor, although we had mass airflow sensor trouble codes. I'm not going to test it because I'm sure that the mass airflow sensor trouble codes are being caused by the DPF, okay? Now, I'm going to clean the DPF first and test drive the vehicle. If the mass airflow sensor trouble code comes back, then we're going to test these wires. This is a 4-wire mass airflow sensor. So we should have a power, a ground, and a signal, okay? So we can check for power and ground at one of these wires, and then the other one is gonna be a signal wire. But I'm pretty sure that the mass airflow sensor is good. The problem is the DPF. So I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm going to do that if I have to. Okay, so let's get this air filter box out. So we're gonna remove this engine cover. All right, so we got the air filter box removed and the engine cover removed. So the next thing is going to be getting access to the glow plug wire. So I'm gonna pull out one glow plug wire, and then I will get a test light so we can test the glow plug wire. If there's power at the glow plug wire, then the problem is a defective glow plug. So here's what I've done. I removed the air filter box, I removed the engine cover, and I also disconnected the glow plug wire of cylinder number 3. So the first cylinder on this bank over here, on the passenger side bank, is cylinder 1, and over here is cylinder 2, and this over here is cylinder 3, okay? So we're gonna test the wiring of the glow plug. I have a test light connected to ground. So one side of the test light is connected to ground. The other side of the test light is connected to the glow plug wire. I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and turn the key on. After turning the key on, if there is power at this wire, at the glow plug wire, the test light should light, okay? If the test light lights, that will tell me that the glow plug circuit is good. Then the problem is just the glow plug. We're gonna replace glow plugs and we should be good to go. But if the test light doesn't light after turning the key on, then the problem will most likely be a defective glow plug control module. So this guy over here, this guy, or an open between the module and the glow plug, which is very less likely. Okay, so I have my test light connected to the glow plug wire. So now I'm gonna go inside the vehicle and turn the key on. So I will leave you over here. You have to watch that test light. So that light should illuminate after I turn the key on. So now let's do that. So right there, as you can see, the test light is lit, okay? So glow plug circuit is good. All right, and in a few seconds, the test light is gonna go off. So the glow plugs are receiving power, but we have open circuit glow plug trouble codes. So the problem is defective glow plugs. So this engine is gonna get glow plugs, okay? It's gonna get 6 glow plugs. I'm gonna replace all the glow plugs and this should be good to go. All right, now I have a video that basically shows how to test this and how to replace glow plugs. I have a video I made recently with my nephew. We basically did the same thing. So if you want to know how to replace glow plugs on this engine or how to test, the test is basically what we did. Now, if you just want to see how the glow plugs are replaced, I would recommend watching that video. You can go back, you can go on my playlist and find that video and watch it. I'm pretty sure it will be beneficial. So I'm going to replace the glow plugs. I know there's power going to the glow plugs, but we have glow plug codes. So I'm gonna get 6 glow plugs. I will replace them. I'm gonna do that off camera and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can clean the DPF. But before we clean the DPF, we're gonna have to get the pre-cat temperature sensor first. Okay, so I will replace the glow plugs. We have confirmed that the voltage on the pre-cat temperature sensor is not dropping, so the sensor is open. We're gonna replace that sensor. After we replace the sensor, we're gonna do a regeneration process. We're gonna clean the DPF. With the DPF cleaner, we're gonna do the regeneration, and then this vehicle should be good to go. I see a lot of oil around the turbo. It looks like the turbo is leaking. I will notify the customer about that oil I see around the turbo. But let me replace the glow plugs. I will order a new pre-cat exhaust temperature sensor, and then I'll bring you guys back up once the sensor gets here. So I will do that and then I'll bring you guys back up. I have replaced the glow plugs and I got everything back together. Putting everything back together is the reverse process of the removal process. I want to show you the old glow plugs, and here they are. So these are the old glow plugs that are removed. As you can see, there are 6 of them. Okay, so there they are. Now, some of them are covered with oil. So I will let the customer know that the valve covers, the valve cover gaskets on this vehicle are leaking. Okay, especially the valve cover on the driver's side is leaking. Okay, so glow plugs have been replaced. Now we are waiting for the exhaust temperature sensor. I'm gonna wait until the exhaust temperature sensor gets here. When the exhaust temperature sensor gets here, I'll bring you guys back up so that I can show it to you. And then I'm gonna install it. Installing the exhaust temperature sensor is really straightforward. I'm gonna install it and then we're gonna use our diesel particulate filter cleaner. We're gonna put it inside the DPF so we can clean the DPF. So basically, when the sensor gets here, we're gonna install it. We're gonna spray the diesel particulate filter cleaner in the DPF, and then we will drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration. So I will wait for the sensor and then I'll bring you guys back up once the sensor gets here. So I have received the pre-cat exhaust temperature sensor. So we're gonna install it. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect the electrical connector of the old sensor first. So we're gonna disconnect it from the harness. So right there. Now we have to go under the vehicle so we can get access to this exhaust temperature sensor. So now we're gonna lift the vehicle so we can get under it and replace the sensor. So now let's lift the vehicle. Actually, before we lift the vehicle, I wanna show you the new sensor. So here is the new exhaust temperature sensor. So here it is. I actually got it from Napa. So here is the part number. And this is the sensor that we're gonna install. Okay. So right there, brand new. Okay. After installing the sensor, we're gonna spray this diesel particulate filter cleaner inside the DPF so we can clean all the soot out of the DPF. Okay, so after we install the sensor, we're gonna spray this inside the DPF and then we will drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration process. Okay, so now let's go under the vehicle and do that. So we are here under the vehicle. I'm gonna show you the pre-cut exhaust temperature sensor that we're gonna replace. So the pre-cut exhaust temperature sensor is the sensor over there next to the oxygen sensor. So that sensor over there that's bent, that's the pre-cut exhaust temperature sensor. Okay, so that's what we're gonna remove, and I'm gonna have to undo this fitting over there, and that fitting is a 17mm fitting, so that nut over there, I'm gonna have to undo that so I can remove the sensor. Okay, so I won't be able to show it to you because it's at a weird angle and I can't get the camera up there while I'm undoing the nut for the sensor. Okay, so I'm gonna sit you guys down here so I can undo that nut so we can replace the exhaust temperature sensor. After doing that, we're gonna undo one of the DPF tube nuts so we can spray the DPF cleaner inside the DPF. I'm gonna show you the tube nut that I'm gonna undo so we can spray the DPF cleaner inside the DPF. So after I replace the sensor, here's what we're gonna do. After replacing the exhaust temperature sensor, we're gonna undo this nut over here. I hope you can see that. So just between the bracket over there, there is a nut. We're gonna undo this nut. So that's the inlet tube for the DPF. So I'm gonna undo this nut, and then we're gonna use the opening of this tube to spray the DPF cleaner inside the DPF. Okay, so I have a couple of videos here on the channel that definitely shows you how to spray the diesel particulate filter cleaner inside the DPF. You have to have a little pressure tank to spray that cleaner inside the DPF, and after you do that, you have to clear the codes and force a regeneration with a scan tool, or you can just drive it at the highway and you should be good to go. Okay, so now I'm going to replace the sensor first, and then we will undo this nut over here so we can spray the diesel particulate filter cleaner in the DPF. So now let's do that. All right, so let's remove the temperature sensor up there. All right, so that's good. The temperature sensor is loose. Okay, so here it comes. So here comes the old temperature sensor. So here it is. So now let's grab the new one. So this is the old one. Let's put it over here. Now let's grab the new one and compare it to the old one. As you can see, they both look the same. So that's good. The connectors also look the same, so we're good. So now let's install the new one. I mean, it's so tough to see up there. So you just pretty much have to go by feeling. All right. So the nut of the sensor is tightened. So now I need to route the sensor wire all the way up there. All right, so that's good. As you can see, I don't know if you can see, but the sensor is installed. So now let's spray some DPF cleaner in the DPF. Alright, so I'm done spraying the cleaner in the DPF. So now I'm gonna put the purge, this little bottle over here, I'm gonna put the purge in the pressure tank, and then we're gonna spray the purge in the DPF. Alright guys, so I'm done spraying the DPF cleaner inside the DPF. So now we're gonna lower the vehicle, we're gonna erase the trouble codes, and then we're gonna drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration process. If you have any questions about the DPF cleaner or how to spray the DPF cleaner in the DPF, I will recommend you watch my how to clean a DPF video. It's here on the channel. Watch it. In that video I pretty much showed how to use this spray can to spray the DPF cleaner and the purge. So if you have any questions about what I just did, I will recommend you watch that video. So now let's lower the vehicle and erase the trouble codes, and then we're gonna do a regeneration. So now let's do that. So we are here under the hood. I did connect the exhaust temperature sensor. As you can see, it's connected. So now let's look at our data pid on the scan tool. So right over here, remember before on the scan tool, we were reading 500, I think it was 572 degrees Fahrenheit on the pre-cat temperature data pid. So right now with the new sensor installed, we are reading 88. So it's going between 88 and 91 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's good. So basically the exhaust temperature sensor was open, okay? Because right now if I disconnect the sensor that we just installed, this reading over here is gonna go up to 500. Actually, let me do that. Let me disconnect this. All right, so I just got the sensor disconnected. So now watch the scan tool. As you can see, we went up to 572 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so this is the reading that we had before. So when you see a 572 degrees Fahrenheit reading on the pre-cat temperature sensor data pid, that means the sensor is open, okay? Or the sensor is defective. Now, this is good, guys. This already tells me that we have fixed the problem. So I'm going to reconnect the sensor. And then I'm gonna use my multimeter. We're gonna back probe these two wires. You will see that when I reconnect the sensor, our voltage will go down, okay? Remember before, we had, I believe, 4.94 volts. So after I disconnect this, I'm pretty sure, I mean, with the sensor disconnected, our voltage will be around 5 volts. And when we connect this connector to the sensors connector, our voltage should go down because the voltage coming from the computer should get pulled to ground by the sensor. All right, so right there, the sensor is connected, and look at the scan tool. After connecting the sensor, now this reading is now dropping, okay? So the sensor is no longer seeing the open in the circuit anymore. Now that voltage is getting dropped to ground, and now we're gonna go down to 88 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is fixed, guys. I'm gonna grab the multimeter just to show you. Actually, I don't have to do that, but I always like to, you know, check and double check the repair before I move on. So let me grab the multimeter so we can back probe the sensor connector. But this here looks good, so this is good already. We are on the voltage scale, so I'm gonna sit my multimeter down over here. Oops. Actually, I'm just gonna put the multimeter up here. And then I'm going to back probe these two wires over here on the sensor. And the key is on in the vehicle, guys. All right, so I back probed both wires right there. So the sensor wires are back probed at the sensor connector, and let's look at the multimeter. We are reading 0.89 volts. Okay, and our reading on the scan tool seems fine. Okay, so we got a good sensor, we're good to go. So now I'm gonna disconnect the sensor. You will see after disconnecting the sensor, our voltage is gonna increase to about 5 volts. So I'm now gonna disconnect the sensor. Alright guys, so I disconnected the sensor. Guess what? Our voltage on the multimeter went up to 4.94 volts, and the temperature here on the data pad went back up to 572 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so the wiring is good. The problem was the sensor. We installed the new sensor and now we're good to go. So now I'm going to reconnect the sensor. So I can disconnect my multimeter. We are done. The sensor is good. The problem was a defective sensor. Right now our data pad on the scan tool looks good. As you can see, after reconnecting the sensor, our temperature here went down to 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so we're good to go. So now let's go inside the vehicle and erase the trouble codes. After erasing the trouble codes, we're gonna drive the vehicle outside so we can do the regeneration. So let's go inside the vehicle and do that. Alright guys, we are back in the vehicle. Now we're gonna erase all the trouble codes. Then we will initiate the regeneration process. So I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. As you can see, we got a lot of trouble codes in the engine computer. Now we're gonna erase all the trouble codes. So let's clear all the codes. I want to check the ABS system to see why the ABS light remains on while the engine is running. Because I told the owner that since he drove all the way from Arlington, Virginia to bring his vehicle to us, I'm going to check the ABS system for him and I'm not going to charge him. So what I want to do is I want to go to ABS control unit. Actually, as you can see, the ABS control unit is not even over here. It's not even listed here. Okay, so there's no ABS on the list of all the control modules over here. So you see there's the engine computer, transmission, electronic gear selector, electronic stability program, so no ABS. Okay, so when you have a control unit that doesn't communicate with the scan tool, the problem usually ends up being a defective module or a module that's not being powered. I think I said that already earlier. So now what I want to do is I want to look at the wiring diagram. I want to see how this ABS control unit is wired. We're going to check the powers and grounds wires at the ABS control unit. Alright, so we're going to go to anti-lock brakes. So we're going to click on that. So here is the ABS circuit. So over here is our ABS control unit. And right here, pin 1 is a ground supply wire. So the brown wire, pin 1 brown is a constant ground, and pin 4 is also a constant ground. And then pin 2 and 3 are power supply wires. Because since they're going up, the wiring schematic, I'm pretty sure they're both going to a fuse. Okay, so this red wire with a white tracer. So if we scroll down, we will see that these two wires go to these fuses over here. So fuse number 4, it's a 40 amp fuse, and this one is fuse 3, it's a 25 amp fuse. And these fuses are in fuse block 1 type of fuse relay box. Okay, so this one over here, these fuses are in the fuse box over here in the vehicle. Okay, so we're gonna check these fuses first. Maybe we have an open fuse. If we don't have an open fuse, we're gonna go to the ABS control unit. We're gonna check these two ground wires and these two power wires, and let's scroll down and see if there's any other ground wire or a power wire over here. So it looks like we have an ignition feed over here. So it looks like it's pin 28. So pin 28 is an ignition. So this one gets power when the key is turned on. So that's good to know. So as you can see, this is the ABS control unit. So we are good to go. So basically we have 3 power wires on this ABS control unit and 2 ground wires. Okay, so let's check these 2 fuses first to see if the fuses are good. But if the fuses are good, then we're gonna go to the ABS control unit and check these wires. And if we have good power and good ground at the ABS control unit, then the problem is a defective ABS control unit. So now let's check the fuses.